Tonight, with Donald Trump's tariff decision looming, Canadian retaliation begins to take shape.
We're fighting for our country, we're fighting for our economy, and we're fighting for Canadian jobs.
As businesses get ready for a jolt to their costs, why you might have to as well. Beefing up border security. We're there with the snowmobiles, the agents, and their dogs.
We found the sixth person, and that person had already gone to sleep.
As another Ontario community declares a food insecurity emergency, a BC Food Bank innovator's new approach.
There's no shortage of food, there's a distribution problem because there is such a surplus of food.
My conversation with David Long.
This is The National with Erica Johnson.
Thank you for joining us. Ian is away. With Donald Trump's inauguration just days away, his threat of 25% tariffs on Canadian goods looming, the Prime Minister has announced that if Trump makes good on that threat, Canada is hitting back. Justin Trudeau says the government has prepared retaliatory tariffs on more than $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, ready for the moment Trump acts. Both Trump's tariffs and Canada's counterpunch, potentially staggering blows to one of the largest trade relationships in the world. In a moment, we'll talk about the devastating impact they could have to the economy. But first, Kate McKenna has the details on Ottawa's preparations for a potentially ruinous trade war.
The Prime Minister told auto workers Canada's got a plan.
Americans and Canadians do well when we do things together.
As industry braces for impact. Justin Trudeau also met with his new U.S.-Canada Council, a nonpartisan group of business and policy leaders convened to deal with Donald Trump's tariff threat.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you could all hear me online. It's great to see everyone here today.
He told them Canada's ready to hit back if Trump moves ahead with a 25% blanket tariff on Canadian goods, as Minister of Foreign Affairs Melanie Joly warned U.S. lawmakers in Washington.
This could be devastating. The Americans would be starting a trade war against us.
CBC Radio Canada has learned the Trudeau government is planning a first round of counter tariffs.
The expectation is that the first round of response, should they have to go to that level, would have a relatively minimal impact on the Canadian economy, but would get the attention of key stakeholders south of the border.
The plan targets $37 billion in American goods. And if that doesn't work, there's a second retaliatory tariff list that targets $110 billion of American goods. Canadian officials say everything is on the table.
We're fighting for our country, we're fighting for our economy, and we're fighting for Canadian jobs.
New revenue from tariffs could support workers and businesses caught in the trade war.
We want to make sure that ultimately, indeed, we use the revenues to support Canadians.
Of course we will retaliate.
Melanie Joly made Canada's case on American TV.
This will be a Trump tariff tax.
Her meetings with top Republicans like Senate Majority Leader John Thune meant to underscore tariffs mean American consumers will pay more.
A lot of senators are very surprised by the numbers we're giving them.
It's still not clear if Donald Trump will follow through on his tariff threat Monday, but if he does, Ottawa is ready to unveil at least the first phase of its retaliation.
So if Canada goes ahead with the retaliatory tariffs, how does this work?
Canada could slap some counter tariffs on a few items immediately as soon as they see what Trump has done and if they choose to respond the same day. But there's a 15 to 30-day period of consultation before the larger list of tariffs can come into effect. As for what kinds of goods Canada will target, sources say it's a strategically chosen list intended to cause the Trump administration maximum political pain. But Canada's preferred scenario would be that Donald Trump back down from this threat.
Okay, thanks for this, Kate. Kate McKenna in Ottawa. Let's turn to the economic consequences now for the U.S. and Canada, for consumers and small businesses. Here's Nisha Patel.
Casey Vasudeva is worried. Come Monday, the auto parts he ships south of the border could face a 25% tariff.
We are really going to get hit hard. And I think our unemployment is going to go through the roof.
Tariffs are basically taxes. They'll increase the cost of the goods that Canadian companies sell to the U.S.
We are preparing. We will do whatever we need to do to stay in the business.
For American automakers, too, the recent uncertainty has been unsettling.
A lot of our supply chain depends on countries from around the world, and so tariffs are really challenging.
Almost everyone in the industry is hoping that the U.S. and Canada and Mexico negotiate something that's not so harsh.
If there are no exemptions, sweeping tariffs would devastate Canada's auto and energy sectors. Metals, food and beverage manufacturing, and chemicals would also suffer. With about 3/4 of the country's exports heading to the U.S. market, overall GDP could shrink by as much as 3.8%.
There's no question this is going to be painful. We could very well find ourselves be pushed into recession quite early in this year as a result.
We've done a lot together.
If Canada retaliates with tariffs of its own, the economy could slow even more.
Any tariffs that we impose are a cost to Canadians, to Canadian businesses and Canadian consumers, so we need to be strategic as opposed to simply being across the board.
While big companies often have more breathing room to weather these economic storms, experts say it's small businesses that are most on edge.
What happens with companies that are still struggling with the impact of higher interest rates and debt levels, and now this is going to be another blow for them to navigate.
Yeah.
For now, Vasudeva says there's only so much he can do.
It's going to be a disaster. I hope he doesn't do it.
His future rests in the hands of Donald Trump. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Former Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland says she is entering the Liberal leadership race. On social media, she announced she's running to fight for Canada, and in an op-ed published in the Toronto Star, emphasized her willingness to go toe-to-toe with the U.S. on trade, with a message to Donald Trump that we won't back down. Her official campaign launch is coming Sunday. On Monday, President-elect Donald Trump's inaugural address will take place indoors due to forecasted dangerous cold. His address and other speeches will now take place inside the U.S. Capitol's rotunda. Washington is expecting a low of -11 plus a wind chill. The inaugural parade will also be held indoors, along with all 3 inaugural balls.
I think there's been some universal concern from some of the committee members that as we focus on the southern border and what we're seeing as far as the invasion there and the amount of people crossing, that the northern border would lose focus. But that will not happen.
At her confirmation hearing as Trump's choice for Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristy Noem referencing the Canadian border while describing the U.S.-Mexico border as a war zone. If confirmed, she'll play a central role in the president-elect's promise to deport millions of undocumented immigrants. Shoring up that northern border is part of Trump's tariff rhetoric, and Canada is spending big to show it's serious about securing it. Tonight, Karen Pauls shows how some of those resources are already being put to use along the front lines in Manitoba.
When RCMP Sergeant Chris Brown got the call about asylum seekers who had just walked into Manitoba from the U.S., he and his canine partner, Mac, jumped into action.
It was -21 and -30 with the wind chill.
They found 5 men suffering from hypothermia. Then they were told of a 6th.
Mac instantly indicated to me that there was another human source of scent. We found the 6th person, and that person had already gone to sleep.
Brown credits his furry partner with saving a life.
We found them all because of him.
He welcomes Ottawa's announcement this week of more support for border security, including drones, 2 Black Hawk helicopters, and 80 more canine units.
We're doing a great job of defending the border as it is, but there are gaps, and we need to close those gaps.
Just days ago, 6 more men were apprehended here using a fixed-wing aircraft with thermal imaging sent from Ottawa.
Pretty hard to hide in winter when you can see exactly where your heat is. When we talk about contraband and other items that may be brought into Canada with the migrants, they were able to also pinpoint baggage that had been dropped along the way.
At the Emerson port of entry, the belongings of 2 of those asylum seekers, as Canada Border Services Agency officers investigate their claims. The other 4 have already been sent back to the U.S.
We have received increased support for more removals of people who don't belong in Canada.
This port, the fourth busiest in Canada for commercial crossings, is also beefing up its ability to find drugs. It's all part of Canada's response to threats of tariffs by President-elect Donald Trump and his concerns about illegal migration and drug trafficking.
We can meet that challenge and that rhetoric.
The big question is whether all of this will be enough. Karen Pauls, CBC News near Emerson, Manitoba.
Time appears to be ticking down for American content creators and the 170 million users of the video sharing app TikTok. The U.S. Supreme Court has upheld a nationwide ban set to come into effect on Sunday. The court unanimously ruled against an appeal by TikTok's Chinese parent company. A federal law requires the app to be sold or to be banned in the U.S. Congress cited security concerns of Beijing's possible access to user information. Tonight, another key hurdle to the Gaza ceasefire deal has been passed. Israel's full cabinet has approved it. Momentum is building now towards Sunday when the deal is set to go into effect. Our Chris Brown is in Jerusalem tonight. Chris, it's already Saturday there, but it took all of Friday and beyond for the approval.
Well, you're right. This vote by Israel's cabinet should really have been a formality, given that it's taken so agonizingly long to get this far. But hard right ministers vowed to kill it. Once it got to the security cabinet, they met, that was approved, and then the deal hours later went to the full-on cabinet, and as you say, it was approved too early Saturday morning. Crucially, at all of these stages, both sides appear to be doing what they said they would do. Hamas has released a list of hostages that will be coming back, 33 in this first phase, which is going to last for 6 weeks. And Israel has released the names of 95 Palestinians held in their jails who will also be returned. Most are women. Many were picked up after October the 7th, and not only have they not been convicted of any crimes, many of them haven't even been charged.
So a lot riding on this, Chris. Everything building to Sunday when the ceasefire should begin.
Well, Israeli media is reporting that the ceasefire will start just after noon. A few hours later, we'll see 3 hostages will be released, all the women, but we don't know their names. And then sometime after that, the Palestinians will start to be returned. Israel's military will also begin to pull back from the main population centers in Gaza, and a surge of aid will head into the territory. This deal calls for 600 trucks a day, almost 10 times more than what we're seeing now. Lots can go wrong to derail this. We may not even get to the second phase. For now, the focus is on getting things started in these first exchanges this weekend.
All right, thanks for this, Chris. Chris Brown in Jerusalem tonight. The ceasefire may be coming Sunday, but until then, the fighting continues. The war in Gaza has killed tens of thousands, though the exact number is open to question. Senior international correspondent Margaret Evans on a study suggesting it could be higher than is widely reported.
One more farewell in a land soaked in blood. The ceasefire set to come into effect in Gaza on Sunday in sight, but out of reach for the dead being mourned here. Victims of an Israeli missile strike in Khan Yunis on Wednesday, after a breakthrough in diplomacy was announced. More than 100 Palestinians are thought to have been killed in Gaza strikes since then.
Ceasefires are inherently dangerous times.
Aid agencies are waiting anxiously for calm that will allow them, they hope, to work.
There's been drugs that we've been waiting for since April of last year, painkillers, supplements for children.
A pause will also allow Gazans to count the dead. A recent study looking at the first 9 months of the war suggests the death toll could be 40% higher.
We find that it's between 55,000 to 78,000 that were killed, possibly from October to June. Like the median is around 64,000.
That compares to a count of 38,000 by Hamas officials for the same period. Dr. Zaina Jamaluddin says the statisticians used a sampling technique that relied on cross-checking lists.
We only relied on names of people who were killed and those who have IDs.
25-year-old Mahmoud Sukar lives with the sound of an Israeli drone overhead and not much else. 17 members of his family, including his twin brother Mohammed, killed in an airstrike over a year ago. He keeps their death certificates close. I carry them so the world sees how we were once a family, he says. Now they're this. Sukar says he's lived through too many wars in his young life. It's enough, he says. The most precious people are gone. So much more than numbers on a page. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Some extraordinary scenes in southern Manitoba today as a dangerous blizzard caused at least 50 to 60 highway crashes. Conditions like this caused the province to issue an emergency alert to stay off the roads. This pileup happened not far from the U.S. border near the village of Roland. Local fire officials say there were no serious injuries here, fortunately. Closer to Winnipeg, another big crash. This man rushed to his stranded wife involved in a 12-vehicle crash.
Her pickup truck is wedged up like this between two semis. She's lucky to be alive.
At least 2 hospitals near Steinbach went into code orange, an alert to prepare for an influx of patients. An Ontario municipality has raised a new warning about food insecurity, and it's not the first to do so. With Canadians everywhere struggling to make ends meet, officials in Kingston are calling for help. Dan Takema shows us how and why.
The situation is that it's a crisis.
For Kingston City Councillor Greg Ridge, the pain of food insecurity is personal. His dad was hurt on the job, and at times, their family struggled.
I remember once in the kitchen, my mom was crying, and I went over and I gave her a hug, and I said, "Mama, it's going to be okay." And these are things that they stay with you for the rest of your life.
This week, Kingston became the 3rd Ontario municipality to declare food insecurity an emergency, and its council is calling on the province to help. The ministry responsible says it's boosted rates to a disability support program, added tax credits, and continues to fund school meal programs. But officials here say much more is needed. Kingston is home to hospitals, post-secondary institutions, and plenty of federal jobs. But even with that broad economic base, public health officials here say roughly 1 in 3 households is living with food insecurity. This public health dietitian says studies show what's happening in Kingston is a national problem. People forced to choose between a meal and other basics like paying rent.
The food insecurity numbers are the highest they've seen in 20 years.
At this local meal program, staff see that reality every day.
We're seeing more people visit that are from all walks of life, people that are employed, people that are unhoused, and everything in between.
One symbol of that change in clients is this, a high chair the program just bought for some of its smallest visitors.
Seeing children, youth, toddlers, babies coming in is very emotional. We know that the need is out there.
That's what this motion is trying to do. Let's make tomorrow a better day for everybody.
And for Ridge, that better day starts with a full stomach. Dan Takema, CBC News, Kingston.
A British Columbia food bank is using an innovative approach to provide healthier options.
We've got to get away from that sort of low nutritional food.
How they're able to focus on fresh, plus
Oh my God!
a wrong-way chase on Canada's busiest highway now leads to 2 officers facing charges.
What I view is the absolute stupidity of these officers.
What they're accused of. And a special surprise at the altar.
We're going to see the bills.
No! No!
We're back in 2. In his last days in the White House, Joe Biden is commuting the sentences of nearly 2,500 people convicted of nonviolent drug offenses. Biden has now issued more individual pardons and commutations than any president in U.S. history. A dramatic takedown by Toronto police when a man driving a stolen Hummer rammed into several cruisers as he tried to escape. Officers eventually boxed the vehicle in and took the driver into custody at gunpoint. 2 Ontario police officers are facing charges tonight after a deadly high-speed, wrong-way highway chase last April near Toronto. Thomas Dagla now with what led Ontario's police watchdog to lay charges.
Oh my God!
In a wild highway chase caught on video last year, drivers were stunned to see a U-Haul van speeding the wrong way. Pursued by police vehicles, several of them, also weaving through oncoming traffic. Now, Ontario's police watchdog is charging 2 Durham officers, each with 3 counts of criminal negligence causing death and 2 counts of criminal negligence causing bodily harm. The charges stemming from the deaths of 3-month-old Aditya Vivan and his 2 grandparents, killed in that fiery crash that also left the boys' parents badly injured.
This was a tragic and catastrophic event that resulted in the death of innocent lives, devastated a family, and has profoundly impacted our community.
The police chief says both officers are now suspended with pay.
What was their reaction to all this?
As I've been told, they're quite distraught.
The chaos first erupted at this liquor store when a robbery suspect pulled a knife on an off-duty officer. Over the radio, provincial police issued this warning.
Just want to make sure the Durham sergeant's aware that they're driving the opposite direction. Someone's going to get hurt.
What I view is the absolute stupidity of these officers in pursuing it the way that they did.
There's a psycho in a truck driving the wrong way.
The driver pursued in that van was also killed. His 1 passenger was arrested and later released after pleading guilty to theft.
I can't believe that they are charging the police officers. I'm shocked because it wasn't their fault.
The officers are set to appear in court next month. Through their lawyers, they say the liquor store robber is the one responsible and the charges against them are wrong. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
A BC Food Bank has found a way to provide fresh options while cutting down on waste.
This was all going to head to landfill?
But these are all in perfect condition. My conversation with the person behind the plan. Plus, how the U.S. TikTok ban could affect Canadians.
When we think about all these American influencers and celebrities, you just won't see that content.
We answer your questions as the Sunday deadline approaches. But first, decades after making it big, Pamela Anderson is back in the spotlight.
This is why my life has been the way it is, so I can do this project.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. Elon Musk says fire from a fuel leak is likely to blame for causing SpaceX's Starship to break apart, sending trails of flaming debris over the Caribbean. The 400-foot rocket launched from Texas Thursday evening on a test flight. The booster made it back to the launch pad as planned, but all communication with the spacecraft went dead. Pamela Anderson is back in the spotlight, and her latest film, The Last Showgirl, hits theaters this weekend. As Eli Glasner shows us, it's a career-altering role for the Canadian actor.
At 57 years old, Pamela Anderson is having a moment, appearing on red carpets without makeup, sharing her story with a book and a documentary, and now riding the wave of acclaim for The Last Showgirl.
This is your place's call for the final performance of The Razzle Dazzle.
Anderson plays a dancer in her 50s who was the face of an earlier time in Vegas.
It's a show. It's costumes. Sets. Look, it is a dinosaur, Shelley.
Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be home, too.
From her home in BC, Anderson joined Tom Power, host of CBC Radio's Q, to talk about the film, a far cry from her days on Baywatch.
Being a part of pop culture, I say, is a blessing, and it also has its downsides because you kind of start at a deficit where you have to prove yourself. This year is about taking my power back.
A few years ago, Anderson thought she was done with acting, ready to retreat to her garden. Then the script arrived.
I read it right here, where I'm sitting right now, and read it and just thought, whoa, I can hear the voice.
She says her life experience and training prepared her for this.
I just realized, oh, this is why my life has been the way it is, so I can do this project.
The independent film was shot quickly, 14 days on a small budget, but Anderson made a big impression.
No, my lease is up in like 10 months.
You're gonna gamble it all, I know you.
We're definitely a little Thelma and Louise with a lot less clothes. I was there 4 days, and it was as if I had been her best friend since the beginning of time.
She is just a magical creature. I am absolutely in love with her. It was so easy to get to play her daughter.
We were ambassadors for style and grace.
And as the award season buzz builds, what did Anderson get from playing Shelley?
Well, a lot of therapy.
And perhaps a new generation of fans. Eli Glaster, CBC News, Toronto.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. A last-minute Supreme Court appeal denied as the clock ticks down for American users of TikTok.
I'm not ready!
How will a U.S. ban affect Canadian users? But first.
Across Canada right now, it's 1 in 5 people using a food bank have full-time employment.
With more than 2 million visits a year, Canada's food banks are struggling to meet demand. But one West Coast organization is finding a way to put fresh, nutritional fare in their clients' cupboards. I recently sat down with David Long, the CEO of the Greater Vancouver Food Bank, to find out why he thinks there is no food shortage, just a distribution problem.
We spend about $6 million buying.
The CEO of the Greater Vancouver Food Bank has moved his charity away from the traditional model. His food bank no longer accepts food donations from the public. Instead, using cash donations and his connections in the food industry, David Long is able to provide fresh, nutritious options to people in need.
I love it when when you first meet somebody and well, what do you do? And you say, oh, I work at the Greater Vancouver Food Bank, and you can see in their eyes automatically, and the words are perfect. Oh, thank you for your work, and they think you work in the church basement and hand out boxes of craft dinner, and then people actually come here and they go like, oh my God, you look like Costco, and I said, pretty much, it's pretty similar to Costco.
So how did you shift what the food bank was when you started to what we're seeing today?
Well, I actually volunteered about a year before I started. I was working with another company, and we had a day to give back in the community. And I actually, with the CEO of that company, we spent a day volunteering at the food bank on the old location. And to be honest, I was kind of horrified. I think the old traditional model of a food bank is, people clean out their kitchen cupboards, let's be honest. And,
right, what's back here that we haven't eaten for months and months sometimes?
Exactly, and your kids come home and it's 8 o'clock at night and, oh, there's a food drive tomorrow at school and, oh, damn, I don't have time to, and so people clean out their kitchen cupboards with great intention. But that, for me, was sort of a stark reality of what a food bank was. And I thought once I became the CEO, I was like, we got to make a difference. We got to get away from that sort of low nutritional food and the instant noodles and the canned goods. And I think back then we were giving maybe 20% of what we gave out was fresh. And I know that the amount of food that is out there, there's such an abundance of food that we should focus on fresher, more, and more sustainable.
So how are you doing on that journey? It was 20% fresh. Where are you at now?
Well, the goal is we have a goal of 65 to 70% of what we give out is fresh. Last week, I was thrilled. We actually hit 84% of what we distributed was fresh.
84%?
Of what we gave out was fresh, perishable, wonderful, nutritious food. And I make my team laugh all the time, and I say the same thing all the time, and it'll probably be on my gravestone. There's no shortage of food, there's a distribution problem, because there is such a surplus of food.
And so what do you mean by that? Because a lot of people think people are hungry because we don't have enough food. What's the distribution problem?
There is so much food. There's so much surplus food. There's so much overproduction of food. And people don't realize that there's policies in place. There's food that gets rejected. There's overproduction. And the distribution problem really comes about where we don't have the mechanics in place to distribute this around to get to people. We don't have the warehousing, particularly for fresh food, we don't have the refrigeration that's needed to be able to get this out to people in need. And that's part of the things that we're working on at the Greater Vancouver Food Bank. This is another example, just excess. We talk about excess food. It's not waste food, it's surplus food. It certainly isn't waste. This is literally what we're handing out to our agencies today. So you can see for yourself, this was all going to head to landfill.
All of this was going to end up in the
All
landfill?
of it. I mean, there's a huge tower of these peppers. Look at that. Would you take that home, Anita?
I definitely would. I don't. What's wrong with this?
You and I would probably pay $10, $8 to $10 in the grocery store. And here we have literally cases and cases of bell peppers.
These are all in perfect condition.
Yep, it's awesome.
So why are they here?
Because it's surplus. There's too much.
And you've got other examples too. What's the avocado story?
We got probably, I think it was about 5 tons of avocados.
5 tons?
5 tons. Over 10,000 pounds of avocados in the green net. They were rejected because the policy of the organization that was going to sell them was that they were half a centimeter too small. And so this is one of the exciting things that happens in the food bank, and we like to have a lot of fun when we get something like, oh my God, what are you going to do with 5 tons of avocados? Well, we're going to be giving out these green nets of avocados to all of our clients and our agencies. And then I phoned somebody like a Nature's Path who, you know, amazing donors, very, very generous. And I'm like, I need tortilla chips because we're going to be making guacamole.
A lot of guacamole.
We're going to have some fun with this, and we're going to give people some, I mean, who doesn't want to eat fresh avocados?
Right.
But it's those kind of policies that, you know, we need to look at, or the overproduction that we need to look at, and we need to be able to have a network where we can move food around the province. There should not be a hungry kid in school.
You've certainly taken an interesting path to get here. You're a classically trained chef. You've worked internationally. Here in Vancouver, you were executive chef at a private club. What made you eventually decide to come to a food bank?
Well, it is. I mean, food's always been passion. I mean, I think food is, it's kind of corny to look at it and say like food is power or food is central, but it really is. It was my first career being a chef. People love to eat all over the world. It's been a lot of fun. The private club industry, especially the city clubs, are based on food. You know, society's based on food. You know, people sitting down eating, you know, dinner at a table. We know what happens to society now if we look at it from a larger or a higher level. You know, families that don't sit and have dinner together and it's all instant food, or you know, they're on the run and they don't take time to have that connection. Being a chef, I think people don't appreciate the financial side of things, where you look at food costs and you look at labor costs and you look at increasing sales and different things like that. And I know a lot of people in the food industry, and I thought, you know, when I got a call about, you know, becoming part of the food bank or working with the food bank in this position, I knew I could make a difference.
Do you ever see any clients that might surprise you?
Oh, absolutely. We you know, we have, I think across Canada right now, it's 1 in 5 people using a food bank have full-time employment. So if you think 20% of people using food banks in Canada have a full-time job, and especially in Vancouver and Toronto, they just cannot afford the expenses of what it is for, you know, putting a roof over your head and having a vehicle or something to get to work, or different expenses that they have. So we've had retired teachers come to the food bank. We've had retired nurses come to the food bank. People that would never ever think that they would need to come and use a food bank, and that's the sad side of it. But that's why we're here. And if you need help, you need food, and literally everybody needs help at some point.
How much of this do you take home? Are you able to leave it in the warehouse?
I have to ask my wife. Probably take. I always think about it. But I love what I do. I love the difference we make in people's lives. I love the stories that we have. I mean, there's good days, there's bad days. You see some real hardship. But when we made the deliberate move to not handing out tins of, bent cans of beans or Kraft dinner or whatever it was, because people having a tough time can afford instant noodles and they can afford the dollar store food. When we did that, I didn't think for a second some of the sort of knock-on effect from those things. And you hear from an elderly lady who's getting through cancer, and she's like, I haven't had fresh vegetables in 6 months. And the smile on her face is like, I got the best job in the world. Are you joking me? This is great. So this is one of 3 coolers that we have.
What do you keep in here?
Well, in here right now, we got a lot of potatoes that we have. This is freshly squeezed apple juice. So these apples were heading to landfill. We actually had so much we turned it into fresh apple juice.
David, you have built a very successful food bank here, which, you know, the opposite end of the scale. It's ironic because you actually don't want to be here. You might be the only CEO in Canada who wants to put himself out of business.
Totally.
Yeah. So then where do you see this going? You know, in 5 years down the road, what will the situation look like, do you think?
We just took another warehouse in Vancouver on Lougheed Highway. And what we've done with that model, it has the same setup with warehousing, refrigeration, but the offices upstairs there, what we've done is we've specifically set aside 2 offices, and we're partnering with other social services because we have 15 to 16,000 people a week coming to see us. So we've now partnered with Immigration Social Services BC, we've partnered with Work BC, and we're giving them this office space for free so that they can talk to our clients about how do I get into the workforce, what government programs are there out there for me to get into the workforce. And so my goal with doing that is to have these other social services work together with my clients to hopefully reduce my numbers. And I think that's actually part of a solution, hopefully, to get people out of that sort of treadmill of poverty that they find themselves in. You know, the Greater Vancouver Food Bank started 40 years ago or 41 years ago as a temporary measure, and it's now grown into this massive operation. And I think as long as we're here, let's do it as best as we possibly can. Let's treat it like a business. Certainly the donors that I talk to, they appreciate the way we run this food bank. They like what they see. They can see the end result. They can see the impact we're trying to have, and especially in children's lives when we're giving them proper nutrition and proper food to get them the proper development, to get their first start in life. But we got to think outside the box.
So interesting, incredible to see what you've built here. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're very welcome.
Good to
Thank
talk
you.
to you. And get this, the United Nations estimates that food waste accounts for as much as 10% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. That is nearly 5 times the total emissions from the aviation sector. Could Donald Trump undo the U.S. TikTok ban?
We think that there's going to be somewhat of a 90-day hold.
What we know about the app's uncertain future. A looming deadline for the video sharing app TikTok and its 170 million American users.
It's not just a national security threat, it's a personal security threat.
A nationwide ban set to begin on Sunday, leaving content creators worried about losing their livelihoods.
Feels like we're losing a community.
Ritesh Kotak is an internationally recognized digital and cybersecurity strategist and expert and joins me from Toronto. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So what will TikTok look like for the 170 million American users when it goes dark on Sunday?
So it's not like the app is going to disappear off the phone. In fact, users will still have the app. You probably won't be able to download any new apps off your respected app store. But when you go to the TikTok mobile application and you click on it, there's probably going to be one of 2 things. Number one is nothing would happen. For example, nothing will end up loading. But most likely, you'll probably see some sort of message saying content is unavailable within your location, and a link as a reason why to educate individuals. There could also be functions to be able to see content that you've previously uploaded and be able to download your data, but you won't be able to add new content, and you probably won't be able to access the feed.
Okay, well, we have some questions for you from our viewers. Taylor would like to know, how will the TikTok ban affect Canadians?
The way it will affect Canadians is you have 170 million users that are automatically going to be suspended essentially from the platform. They won't be able to upload content. So the main thing that we're going to see as Canadians is less American content. It will just be international content, more Canadian content. But when we think about all these American influencers and celebrities that a lot of us follow on social media platforms, especially TikTok, you just won't see that content.
Okay, well, what about Canadian creators who rely on TikTok for their livelihood? How will they be impacted by this, do you think?
So Canadian creators, one of the big things is the ability to reach a large audience, to be able to monetize the content. And when we think about some of these American users on TikTok with millions of followers, a lot of Canadian content creators rely on them to amplify their message, to get it out to even more people. The more clicks, the more eyeballs on posts, the more monetary value that post will have. So one of the big ways that this is definitely going to impact Canadian creators is that message amplification is going to be definitely minimized. Thus, it's going to hit their bottom line.
All right, we've got another viewer question for you. Aaron M. asked, so it will be banned on Sunday and Trump might bring it back? She's referring to speculation that one of Trump's executive orders might be to save TikTok. What are the chances that that will happen, and what would saving it look like?
So right off the bat, we think that there's going to be somewhat of a 90-day hold. The Trump administration is essentially going to say, all right, TikTok, you have 90 days to divest, find an American buyer, change ownership. Whether that happens or not is speculation. But it seems that on Sunday, we're going to go dark. And Monday, when Trump gets inaugurated, probably we'll see the app come back on for millions of Americans. There's still a lot of questions on what the future may be. Are they actually going to be able to divest? Will a separate U.S. TikTok platform be created? One of the big issues is around the algorithm. China and ByteDance, which is a Chinese-owned company, may not want to actually transfer the intellectual property, the algorithm, to the United States. So they may create something separate altogether. So probably 90 days is what they will have to get some sort of deal. And if I think that 90 days expires without a deal, then there'll probably be a full-out ban.
All right, well, lots to be watching for, and we know you will certainly be doing that. We will be on top of this story as well. Of course, one thing we know for sure is a lot of people are going to be taking a big social media break for at least a period of time on Sunday. Good to talk to you, Ritesh.
Thank you for having me.
Here's a story we're working on for Sunday, the eve of Donald Trump's return to the White House. Canadian dairy farmers are feeling uneasy about the incoming president's distaste for their industry and how he might target it.
Here's the problem with Canada. We're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it. We don't need the cars. We don't need their lumber.
The intensity of Donald Trump's attacks on Canada may be stronger than ever.
We've been screwed by Canada.
But Trump's anger at the trading relationship goes way back. One of the earliest beefs of his first term over Canada's dairy industry.
Canada, what they've done to our dairy farm workers is a disgrace.
And it's in his sights again now.
We don't need their milk. We got a lot of milk.
With Trump vowing to renegotiate the new NAFTA agreement that he signed onto in his first term.
Oh, I'm going to have a lot of fun.
We meet Canadian dairy farmers concerned about Trump 2.0.
We don't need their dairy products.
Wow.
I think he doesn't understand the dairy industry either in the States or Canada.
And we look at Canada's dairy supply management system that has Trump so riled up.
Why should we pay?
You can catch the inauguration of Donald Trump live right here on CBC. Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault hosts our special coverage from Washington Monday morning beginning at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific. You can find us wherever you get your CBC News. Up next, a groom surprises his bride during their vows.
Oh my God! Seriously?
The reveal that led to this reaction in our moment. You're looking at the moment this Nova Scotia bride got the surprise of a lifetime when her groom pulled out tickets to see her favorite NFL team. That surprise came while he was delivering his vows, and the incredible reaction was all caught on camera. Tonight, the newlywed sports fans make our moment.
We're going to see the Bills.
No! No!
I decided to gift Olivia tickets to the Buffalo Bills, one of her favorite teams in the NFL. She ended up having an extreme crazy reaction.
Oh my God! Seriously?
Everyone's losing it, crying and laughing. And everything's going on.
I couldn't even believe it, as you saw. I was just so excited. I was not so subtle in my hints to him that we were going to a Bills game this year at some point. We just figured it would be next season.
When?
The gift was actually placeholder tickets for a game of her choosing in the future. She can decide to see whatever team she wants them to play. We ended up getting tickets for the game this Sunday against the Ravens. And then with all the hoopla going on, my family decided to join in as well. We're all going down, going to Highmark Stadium, doing the tailgating, whole thing, and we're all sitting together in the same section.
You know, I think this bodes well for that couple. The groom clearly knows how to make his bride happy, and his entire family. They are all going to the game on Sunday. And apparently this video has made its way to the Buffalo Bills' attention, and it is now on their official Instagram account. So I hope the team wins Sunday. Congratulations. From all of us here at The National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app or subscribe to The National's YouTube channel. I'm Erica Johnson. Take care.